Hi, I'm Tiffany Little Canfield, and we're listening to How We Roll.
When it comes to working in entertainment, there's a lot of hows, and they all boil down to how we navigate this wild industry. While how we follow our dreams is uncertain, how we roll along the way is in our hands. Welcome to How We Roll, a podcast for actors by casting networks. Hello, fellow actors. It's your friend Robert Peterpaul here to answer more hows on rolling through the wonderful world of entertainment. Speaking of hows, I have one here. How do you interview someone who's touched on so many projects that you love? Well, I guess as Nike says, you just do it. Joining me at the mic today is one of the biggest names in casting, the terrific Tiffany Little Canfield. Tiffany Little Canfield is a casting director for theater, film, opera, television, and commercials at one of the nation's casting power plants, the Telsey Office. You may have heard of her team's recent film projects, from the Wicked movies to more recently Verity starring Anne Hathaway and Dakota Johnson, all the way to Disney's live-action adaptation of Moana. Canfield's television credits are just as exciting, including hits like Only Murders in the Building, This Is Us, and Just Like That, to name a few. Not to mention my new favorite show, Paradise, which I did pick her brain about. She comes to us as her current work on Ryan Murphy's Monster, the Ed Gein story, is being buzzed about all over town. She has been honored with many nominations and the Casting Society of America's Media Access Award for promoting awareness, accessibility, and accurate depictions of people with disabilities. Little Canfield is a proud alumna of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts drama program. Tiffany and I touch on so many of her iconic projects and collaborators, I didn't even know where to start. She has really phenomenal, tangible advice on so many things that we come across as actors, most likely because she started thinking she would be an actor herself. From why breakdowns may not matter as much as we think, to how she's not in the business of casting a good self-tape. This is one of those conversations that's truly going to stick with me and change me for good. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Thank you all for submitting questions on social media at Casting Networks and at Rob Peterpaul. Please continue to submit your hows. It's so much fun when I get to shout you out on the show and get your questions answered, because that's really the point of this podcast. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for being here. Now here's how we roll with the acclaimed casting director, Tiffany Little Canfield. We're rolling. Tiffany, welcome to How We Roll. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too.
How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm
Okay.
excited. Can't complain. The weather's beautiful. It's California.
Oh, lucky you. Although I gotta say, East Coast is pretty beautiful today too. We're meeting on a beautiful day. It's sunny. Maybe it's just so bright because you're here and you got all these things to celebrate, from Monster to Wicked. I mean, I look at your career and I'm paralyzed with questions. I could just keep going on. I'm truly such a big fan of your work, and overall, just the way you always serve the story. I think it's super special. So I can't wait to pick your brain today. And I feel like when people say, who would you want at a dinner party? You're a great answer, Tiffany. I feel like you'd be a really great guest because of this journey. So whip out the silverware. Here we go. Before we dive into Monster and more, we always like to start with one question, which is, I know you started out as an actor, but what was your first paid gig in this industry?
My first paid gig was actually working in casting on La Boheme. It was Baz Luhrmann's production of Puccini's La Boheme on Broadway.
Wow. That
Mhm.
must have been wild.
It
He's such a
was.
character.
It was fantastic. I thought it's not going to get better than this. And then I've just been really, really lucky and blessed in my career. I don't know if anything's been better, but I've definitely had things that are,
Yeah,
in the same vein.
I agree. You know what? I think better and best, like when you say best friend, it's almost a category, right? It's not
Mhm.
necessarily that it's just one. So I think you probably had a lot under that umbrella. I wonder, for folks listening that maybe are realizing they love being in this industry, they love acting, but they have a similar thought process to you in that, okay, maybe I'm better better in the casting department. What's your advice to those folks listening on maybe transitioning?
I think that, like everything in the arts, it's challenging, and I think it's
Yeah.
it's also one of those things when you think about it, where when we talk about trends in the industry, it's important to remember that similar to a costume designer or a production designer or a director or writer,
Mhm.
or not writers really in television, but we can have a show that has 60 actors or something, but there's one casting director, potentially two,
Mm.
right? So I would just say that I would immerse myself and try to watch everything. I would try to go see every play that's possible to see in my, hometown. I would try to immerse myself in just the talent pool wherever you are, like learn who
Mm.
they are, see what they're doing. I mean, obviously, if you're in New York or Los Angeles or London, that's quite a huge pool. So you definitely want to,
Yeah.
kind of check out, just, be sure to go to independent film, that has shot in one of those, as well as plays obviously happening off Broadway as well,
Mm.
especially probably because then you're going to see the real like working actors who live there and are the community and become part of the community. I think that that's really important is to um, immerse yourself in where you wanna be, right? And
Mm.
try to get as close to it as you can and learn about it and kind of observe for a while and really see, like, how does this go down? And I have to plug it, but, the
Please.
Casting Society, which is our professional, um, it's not a union, but it's our professional group, they have a training program and a mentorship program, so I would run straight towards that.
That's such great advice. And I will say, whenever I was privileged, more so pre Panini, to go into the Telsey office, y'all are very community driven. You sort of have a community vibe in your office, which is super special. And looking at your career again, it's like you're consistently a part of a lot of the same teams and communities. And so it's so special. I wonder, having the actor still in your brain, what do you think is a skill you learned as an actor that helps you the most now that you're on the other side of the table?
I mean, scene study, text work, use it every day. I feel like
Mm,
it was a strength I had when I was in, acting school. I didn't try to be a professional actor. I was in school, at conservatory when I was
okay.
like, I'm sitting down at the table reading, looking around and going, this isn't going to be good. You know,
You-
because of casting. Yeah, because I would be looking around going like,
oh.
Mrs. Keller's the same age as Mr. Keller, but I think in the story she's supposed to be his second wife and the same age as his son. So what's going to happen to those
Mm,
scenes? That kind of a thing.
yeah,
Even though
yeah.
I'm playing like an offstage voice, I'm just still having those thoughts, right? So I was in school and I realized like, I don't know that I'm going to have enough control as in the role of an actor to like help make something good as I wanted to.
Mm,
You
yeah.
kind of have to stay in your lane when you're an actor and focus on your work. You don't really give notes to the other actors, right? Or go to the
Mhm.
director and say, think you have me entering on a punchline, stuff like that. You gotta just kind of suck it up, say yes, and do your best in the
Oh,
circumstances. And
that's a
I just
t-shirt.
don't know that that was really gonna be my life.
Yeah,
And
suck it up, say yes, and do your best. That's a tattoo.
yes.
I'm gonna put that
Yes,
somewhere.
say
I
yes
love
and do
that.
your best. But so I think that that has served me throughout my career, and definitely, when I transitioned to school to be a director, that's obviously huge, is really, trying to get into the mind of the writer and that story and what they're trying to tell, and I feel like that's a skill I use every day.
Mm, beautifully said. Well, doing a little bit of a deep dive, I did see that you popped in some films like Rachel Getting Married, I believe. What was it like then years later? I'm sorry, and this can just be one example of then working with Anne Hathaway as a casting director on multiple projects.
Well,
I'm not
I
sure if you.
was on the casting team for that. So what happened on Rachel Getting Married was I was not pursuing acting. We did auditions and I read with the actors. And so we had done a really big day of, you know, kind of mixing and matching and reading. It was phenomenal. That's where we
Yeah.
really got our cast together, which was super exciting. Sebastian Stan, Quincy Tyler Bernstein, very exciting to me. And then Jonathan called me and was like, I can't get over your work you did when you were working with the actors. I want you to be in the movie. So that's what happened there.
So cool. That's like
It was
Octavia
cool, but
Spencer.
it was also it was really the day because, when you go to acting school and you transition, all your friends who knew you as an actor are like, "Aren't you gonna act again?" Or, "Don't
Hmm.
you really wanna be an actor?" And you're, like, giving up on that, and I'm like, no. Do you know what I do?" And that day was, like, the biggest day to test that confidence I had in my decision
Mm,
because when Jonathan called and said, "I wanna put you in the movie," I said to him, "I do not wanna take one of those photos of the actors that we've pinned for these roles down and
mm,
put myself up there. I'm so proud of everyone we've got in this cast to down to one line. Like, I really don't wanna replace anyone with myself. I'm so proud of the work that we did today." And then he said, "Well, I'll add you to a scene." I was like, "Okay, well,
there you go.
But I was and it was true. Like, I was more proud that we were able to help him see the
Mm,
brilliance of someone like, Quincy Tyler Bernstein than for me to be in it,
yeah.
So
No, that's
that
cool.
really because you always think, "No, I'm really enjoying this. I'm so much happier than when I was pursuing acting." But when
Yeah.
you get actually offered something and then you're like,
Mm,
"No, I'm more proud and more fulfilled by the work we did today in the casting room than,
mm.
you know,
Then
going."
you know you're in the
And then
right
it's hard to
place.
say no, right?
That's true. It's like the Disney movie Enchanted. It's like, that's how you know. Well, I
Mhm.
wonder then, I was at the Artios the year the idea of you won achievement in casting. And I remember Bernie saying how generous Anne was in the casting process to read with every actor. And since then, and before, I mean, you've worked with Ariana Grande, obviously, the past few years, just to name one, Michelle Williams, Martin Short, and then, of course, Charlie in Monster. Is that something you've noticed about actors at the top of their game, quote unquote, like a generous spirit or an openness?
Yeah, I really think that recognizing that whether you're the lead or you're in a supporting role, you're joining an ensemble of storytellers to tell this story, and I think that people who really understand how to enter into a space like that, ready to give and hold each other up. That's what an ensemble does is they hold each other
Mm.
up and support each other. And so I feel like that is a through line of a great actor.
Yeah, but beautifully said. In researching your journey again, hearing about you taking this chance, I was saying before we started recording, and starting the Telsey LA office to be closer to your family, it really moved me because I feel like it can be so hard to balance family life with your dreams, and they're both dreams, right? I
Mhm.
just truly admire how you made that happen, and I think actors listening and just creatives in general can take a lot from you doing that. I mean, what was it like to make that leap?
I mean, it was really scary. I have to be honest. It was not my decision. It was my family wanting that to happen. And
Yeah.
I like to joke that, I had a really good life in New York. I was a Tony voter. I was a
Oh,
Lortel nominator, so I saw everything,
okay.
for free.
Yeah.
So that was incredible.
Yep.
That was hard on my family because 'cause I'd be out to the theater 4 nights a week, with little babies at
Mm.
home and stuff, and so, when we moved out there, I really was trying to just justify my salary for at least 6 months, right? That was sort of I didn't know if it would work. I'd read an article about people who split the time between Northern California and working in Southern California, so I was gonna
Yes.
try to model it after that, and I was really, really scared, and there was this sort of plan that I would do musical theater generals during the week and do generals so that everyone just be aware that we'd opened an LA office.
Mm.
But the week before I left, I got so lucky. Amy Britt at Showtime called Bernie and said, "We want you and Tiffany to meet for this new show to do the New York casting." And Bernie said, "Well, Tiffany's about to move to LA." And they said, "Oh, well, she should meet and just do the show." And so it
Yeah.
was amazing that that could
Mm.
happen in that timing. So I actually dumped the kids and the fam, and then went
Yeah.
down, found a place to live and started I'm Dying Up Here, a pilot I did that, we got 2
Mm.
seasons. I'm really proud of that show, and it was really a trial by fire, like, will this work? And
Yeah.
I think the musical theater department at Telsey is like, remember that dream of you doing the generals of musical
Yeah,
theater
right.
actors all the time? I was like, "Oops."
That's so funny because I thought you meant in moving from New York to LA, you're like, "Now I'm dying here. I love LA. I'm dying up here." You were talking about a pilot, though. I'm dying up here.
Yes,
Then you
I'm
meant that.
dying up here.
I was like,
No,
"Okay,
yeah.
she loves it. That's great." So, diving a little bit deeper into the actor casting collaboration in the audition process, most of all, feel free to use examples from Monster here. For actors, it generally starts with the breakdown, right? And a lot of folks, I think, don't realize, which you openly talk about, how casting most of the time works with writers on the breakdown, I guess, when that's
Mhm.
possible. What does that collaboration look like? And do you think actors should not feel afraid to sort of stray from the breakdown, if that makes sense? Because I
Well,
think we can
often the
cling on to
breakdown is
keywords.
pretty general on purpose because, often we don't want to get spoilers out. And then also, we are trying to kind of give a taste of the direction we're leaning for this role and describe some qualities we're looking for in the storytelling. So I think that I wouldn't say it's like, don't be afraid to stray from it, but I think that instead, don't focus too much on that breakdown description, focus on the text you've been given and use
Mm,
your text analysis because the breakdown is general on purpose. And I think that because we want to be inclusive, so we're not always necessarily like describing exactly because we want to be open to creative interpretation for
mm,
us, for the actor, for the writers, for the director, for everyone, right?
yeah.
We want to be more inclusive than not. So I think what happens is actors are looking for any clues to how to get it right. And so they really wed themselves to that breakdown. And I'm sort of think, well, the breakdown is really for the agents, to
Mm.
understand who to submit. It's not actually like, I'd take it with a grain of salt, honestly.
Okay, that's a
Mhm.
great distinction. No one said that. I really appreciate that because we do get a lot of actors asking. We have people submit questions, and people do ask if I get an audition with a breakdown that I don't feel connected to, or I feel like I'm not going to do a good job. I'm nervous to even audition, and I know a lot of the time the advice is to just show up and do it because you never know.
Well, the thing is, sometimes you'll have, I remember this story from a film I did with John Requa and Glenn Ficarra, where it said blonde bartender. And it was like,
Mm,
any gender, any age, no real it was 1 or 2 lines, and I said, "Okay, anything you specifically want for the blonde bartender? Is it like a pool" it seems like it's at a hotel, is it like the pool bartender? Is this like someone wearing a cover up
yeah.
delivering, pool drinks, or is this, somewhere else? Like, what's the vibe of it? And they said, "Could be anything, doesn't have to be blonde." But do you know how many actors walk in? Because and they were just there were a lot of bartenders in this movie, so they were just, I think, literally differentiating it, so it was a different
Mm,
name for the day-to-days, so production could keep clear which scene was this particular bartender in.
mhm.
And meanwhile, I have actors coming in like, "I'm not blonde. Why am I here?" And you're just like, "It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
They weren't gonna reissue a new draft of the script where they take out the word blonde. Like, it
Yeah.
didn't matter, but yet so many actors I think the challenge when you're an actor is, the first thing you really think when you get an audition is, "Do I have a chance of getting this?
Mm,
Can I get this?" And that breakdown is the first part where if you don't see yourself reflected in it, you think you're not right for it. But you have to
mhm.
remember the writer doesn't know you.
Yeah.
The writer doesn't know you. So, of course, you may not see yourself reflected in it because they're not describing you, right? They're describing the
Yeah.
character, and then I just read it, but don't make any decisions. Don't take on any neurotic because trust me, your brain, the way we all work,
Mhm.
especially when we're really wanting something, is we look for why I'm not going to get it.
Mm.
Right? Because we
Yeah,
want
human
to protect
condition.
ourselves. We wanna protect our emotional, connection to it, and I
Mm.
totally get that, but I'm also like,
Yeah.
"Are you gonna pass?" No, you're
Yeah.
not. So
No.
just open up the scene and read it and put
Mm.
yourself into the scene and don't worry that it said blonde or it had a certain age or something, unless it's like the character clearly needs to be a certain age in order to, like if you're about
Yeah.
32 and you're still going out for college age parts and you read it and it's all about a college kid who gets carded and then,
Mhm.
can't get into the bar and you're kind of looking at yourself in the mirror and you're thinking, I don't know if that's going to be the story. That's a reasonable one, but I think
Yeah.
people go way deeper where it's sort of like,
Yes.
I'm not being described personally in this breakdown, so I'm not potentially right for this.
Mm. I appreciate that.
Kind of
Yeah.
getting in their heads about it.
Yeah, I think the way you said that is Very simple and digestible, which is awesome for people listening. When you're between two actors, I've heard you say, and I mean, it all always does hark back to the story. What ultimately helps you make the choice is then going back to the text. And I think that advice can also apply to actors maybe stuck in an audition, right? We always hear, make a choice, make a big choice. And I think the meaning of that is even a little different for people. So
Oh, it
when
definitely is.
yeah, right? Like, I think even just that simple phrase can get people spiraling. So for auditions or scene work, is that what you would say? Just go back to the text and
Yes.
don't get bogged down in anything else?
Yeah. Go deeper,
Yeah.
explore, use your imagination. I think a fun little trick to just break out, especially if you get in your head about it, is, find someone and have them read your part and you read the other parts. Stuff like that. Just some kind of way to unlock your brain to keep yourself going deeper and reinvestigating it.
Hmm. I think the trying on different hats is so special too. That's why I love casting directors that were actors. Charlie in Monster, of course, is also a screenwriter.
Mhm.
So I wonder if like that probably fed into his process, like you were just describing, of even breaking down the scenes. In looking at, I guess, self-tape still while we're sort of in the audition circuit here, what do you all the questions kind of boil down to that I'm sure you get are like, what do you look for? But in the first 10 seconds or so, what kind of lets you know that an actor understands the tone? Especially with a Ryan Murphy show, which has a very specific sort of flavor.
I mean, how can I even answer that question? There's no answer to that. This is the problem with acting. Everyone's like, "So what are you looking for?" I'm like, "Good acting." So
Mhm.
what do from the tone? I don't know. It depends which one. I work on a lot of projects with Ryan, and they're
Yeah.
very different tonally. So
Mm.
again, it's the script. It's really about, what do you think it's gonna look like?
Mm.
Look at it
Yeah.
from, what do you think it's gonna look like? What do you think the character, like, what is the first impression? If when you read this and this character walks into a room, what do you think other people think about? Like, do
Mm.
they see, um I think when you say, I'm only saying that because you're saying the first 10 seconds, and I'm saying, well, that's the first impression we're getting as casting, and also the director and writers, if they're, included in
Mhm.
watching, and then the studio, everyone has a first impression as soon as that frame, from a tape opens up. What story is being told? Is there any story, or are you what I call scooping into it? Meaning, like,
Mm.
you've identified later in the scene one emotional turn, and so you're just kind of like earnest until we get to that. And I'm like, but you
Mhm.
haven't really made any decisions. It's not
Mm.
just earnest.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who is this person? Do they have an air of authority? Do they, when they started the scene, did you get a sense like everyone's listening or concerned about something they might say? Or do they don't listen to them because they seem like a clown, or
Yeah.
what is the other people's impression, and how can you make that impression from the first frame,
Mm. Yeah,
right?
understanding that. No, I love that. I know, again, all these questions, a lot of the ones we get that I appreciate so much are sort of you have to dance around it a little bit because it is so subjective and it's kind of like that intangible, well, when you know, you know.
Well, and you have to remember that they don't know you.
Yeah.
So you get to control your first impression of what you see. And that's why I
Mm.
think it's really smart when, people do make very strong choices in the beginning that really, like, we understand immediately that this person gets what we're doing here. Like, they're
Mm.
kind of collaborating with us because we are looking for collaborators. Actors are
Yeah.
collaborators, and they are part of the ensemble of the storytelling team. And so we need storytellers. And sometimes I feel like actors are more trying to, like, answer a quiz, a pop
Mhm.
quiz, and they have not, like, committed to an idea of the
Yeah.
character.
Yeah. Well, in that same vein of sort of obviously it's commitment to the character and the story, but do you see people bending the virtual medium a little bit? I think a lot of us can get sort of
What
stuck
does that
in
mean?
like, we can get stuck in backdrop and ring light
Oh,
land.
yeah, who cares about that?
Yeah, what like, do you see people I mean, I think it was Jonathan Bailey in Wicked. I mean, he's Jonathan Bailey, but he did, like, a cell phone tape or something. Like, I know you see those, but
He was backstage of his show.
that's
He
where he
just
was.
did that, right. Well, because we
Yeah.
were begging for it, and he was doing the play, and I think that he just was like, "God, I gotta get this done, and, I have 5 minutes." So we did it, which actually just happened to be so Fiero, like, the fact
Mm,
he's so cheeky and he's not overthinking it. He seems like, "Well, dash this off and send it in." That's what Fiero would do, right? Especially at the
yeah.
beginning, Fiero is shallow. He says that,
Hmm.
he's been kicked out of schools. I mean, do you know how many people how many things went are technically wrong in that audition, right? Singing to the soundtrack, not to a track, to the
Hmm.
soundtrack. I think he switched keys, right? He kind of openly talks about he switched keys.
Yeah.
You can hear there's no backdrop. You can literally hear the stage manager calling places during it, which he acknowledges in the tape. Like, there's so much things that any teacher would tell you, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But at the end of the day, what I'm looking for is someone who has those qualities
Mm.
that Fiero has, and I could tell he had a really good voice, regardless if he changed keys. I could tell his
Hmm.
voice is good. I can tell can really pull off a devil may care attitude. I mean, that was sort of entrenched in the self-tape, was a devil may
Hmm.
care attitude. It was very right.
Yeah.
But from a character standpoint, not from a good self-tape. But you know what? I'm not in the business of casting good self-tapes.
There you go. I love that. Have you been able to get back into having more in person now, or is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's great. That's awesome. I know people at least will offer the virtual Zoom a lot of the time, which is
Mhm.
really cool. You've even mentioned technical things, not to get too bogged down in the self tape, but just you saying, even like, unless it's maybe a big musical, whatever it is, I don't need to see below your chest or even like, the Warner Brothers haircut, whatever. Like, I just need to see your eyes. And I think being that close to the camera is such a great reminder. And it just makes me wonder, do you have any other like little tangible tips like that for
Well, yeah, I
auditions?
need to see your face. There's gotta be light on your face. That's the most important thing so that your eyes have some reflection, right? So it's not just dark. I always say this when I'm talking to actors, I'm like, "How much can you get from me like this? Like, this is not as
Mm,
good as this, right? This is now you can see me. We can actually connect virtually if we're
mhm,
like this." But that being said, we do need the full slate so that we get a sense of, what you look like. And you know who's the person who asks for that the most? Costume department. It's really a
mm,
logistics thing. It's not it's something that is a given when we're in person that you're gonna walk in the room and we're gonna see what you look like. But we can't
mm,
do that when we just have the scenes and the scenes are shot the way we hope. So that's why we do need that one full length shot, but I don't mind if it's like a picture or however you get it. If it's outside and you're editing it, don't care. Again, it's
mm.
purely the slate is purely
Okay.
to see what you look like and, um, like, imagine walking in the room. That's the slate.
Yeah. I
It's
love that.
not overthinking it, please. It's not we don't cast the slate.
Well, I do think for some people, walking into the room as themselves can be very hard,
Oh,
you
for
know?
sure, yeah. No, it's really auditioning is hard, guys. It's the arts. If
Yeah.
it were easy, I mean, that's what I hate to say it, like, we're seeking excellence.
Mhm,
I feel like a lot of times we're so lucky in our profession of, storytelling with television and film, especially, that there's a commercial side to our art form. I
hmm.
feel like because of that, and because when you're really good at it, it just sort of looks like behaving. I doubt that there's quite as many people who see a movie and say, "I wanna be an actor, I'm gonna move to LA," without any training or acting lessons or
Mhm.
anything. How many people you think go to the Philharmonic and are like, "Tomorrow I'm booking an audition tour through Europe, I'm gonna play the cello."
Yeah.
But that's what we do. It's a
Mhm.
craft and an art form, so you've really got to invest in it. It's not gonna be easy, it's gonna be hard. It's never been easy to be an artist
Mm.
unless you're able to make your own art, right? And you
Yeah.
can afford to do that, like, that's
Mhm.
but making a living as an artist has really never been, I think, in the top 5 most suggested, careers that parents
Yeah,
may hand down.
I don't think so. I don't know about that.
No, I know my parents told me I was choosing homelessness by going to drama school,
Oh,
so
no.
didn't
D
work
well,
out that way, proved them
did they
wrong, but
change their minds? Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's good. Well, you know what? It's true. We don't all have that support, but I do think a lot of casting directors are these supportive champions, to have a clunky transition here. And one thing you talk about a lot is the power of stillness. And I just want to be still for a moment and talk about that because I think casting directors are really good. I mean, it's even vulnerable to do what you do, right? To sit behind a table in power and sit in a silent moment or see somebody messing up and be there. Like, there's a lot of vulnerability there on both sides. And so, I don't know. I would just love to hear you talk about tapping into the power of stillness in an audition setting and not letting it be sort of underpowered by stillness, if that makes sense.
I'm going to try. I feel like we're kind of talking about two different things, and what is the definition of stillness in this context.
Yeah.
I would probably change the word stillness and make it being present,
Present.
and focused
Yeah.
on the work we're doing, because I feel like the extraneous movement or distracting movements is a cover, right? We
Mm.
don't have a foundation, a plan of what we're gonna do, so we're sort of swimming, if we're gonna use, words that are not, literal. We're
I love a
swimming, or
metaphor.
maybe we're
Yeah.
indicating because we don't trust that our work is clear, so we start to indicate, sometimes, in a way that can be unnecessary, and so therefore it's sort of in place of
Mhm.
great acting is sort of indicating, like, I want you to know I know what the scene is supposed to be, but I haven't
Mhm.
necessarily done the work to be in it. So I'm going to indicate to you that I know what we're supposed to be doing here. And I'm
Mm.
okay, but that's not really what we're looking for. So,
Mhm.
you know, I would rather, that's why I say sometimes, a strong wrong can
Yeah.
be more successful than something, uh, general, because a
Mm.
strong wrong might be wrong in terms of what the scene's intention is, but you're fully committed, right? You've
Mhm.
made a choice, and so I see you as this type of actor you are, and then it's very easy for me to say, it looks like you're playing it this way. Now imagine you can't let everyone see that, right? Like, because there are
Mhm.
people, in the scene who you're afraid of. So, that's what's happening internally, but don't show us that, or whatever it is. Maybe it's just a
Yeah.
redirect. I'm like, this isn't your sister you're talking to, or whatever
Yeah. Yeah,
that
yeah.
was wrong. But the commitment is what I see. Um,
Mm.
and the choices, the depth of the ideas, because I know what's in the script, so I know what
Mhm.
they're bringing, right?
Yeah.
I know what they're bringing that might be original, unique,
Mm.
and special, and otherwise, sometimes it just sort of feels like we're reading it together, and I'm sort of like,
Mm. Good
"That
night.
me?" But
Yeah.
not, you're really in danger if that's the level of prep you've done to get
Mm.
by someone who comes in and blows our socks off.
Yeah. Well, speaking of perfect transition to Charlie in Monster, moving into that a little bit, which Ed is almost a mythic character in pop culture, right? And I mean, from what I read, Charlie had this
I
meeting with,
think we wish he was mythic on some level.
well, true. I mean, the show plays with that, right? With
Yeah,
Alfred Hitchcock and sort
yeah.
of
Mhm.
like what the media makes mythic in a way. And so he had this meeting with Ryan and then he signed on, then maybe he second guessed it, he said. But was he involved in the audition process as far as you all rounding out the cast? Did you know, he was in mind?
Yes, no, we knew it was gonna
Okay.
be him, and I think it's kind of, for me, it felt like such a good fit because of, 1, I think he has a strong physical resemblance. Like, he is, certainly a handsomer version, but if you actually look at the pictures and can imagine
Mm,
him, in a modern setting, I think that there is, like, a connection, and also he's really scary, but he's also
mhm,
really vulnerable, and I feel like Charlie has, real danger. Like, he has
mm,
access to real danger and strength, and can be quite intimidating, in his previous work, and so I think the
mhm,
fun part was gonna be to find the humanity in this character, and you
mm,
knew that, the strength, and that this person could, physically, do what this person did, and also just walk into the room with that danger, right? You wanna feel off put,
yeah,
you wanna,
yeah,
he's scary, and we don't understand him, right? We don't understand why someone would do what Ed Gein did, and I think the magic of what Charlie did is to really explore what could what kind of person could be capable of what might have happened to them, what their personal insecurities, their blind spots, right? Which I think we really see with Charlie's performance is naivete almost,
mm,
which I think is what makes the performance so surprising and astounding, is that I think Charlie, we think of him as a real leading man, like a very strong, like maybe even leaning towards kind of action and intensity. And then to see the vulnerability and naivete that he brought to this character, that he's just a person looking for love and trying to do right, which is
Mhm.
the ironic part.
Yeah, it's like the central question of Wicked, right? Are we born wicked or do we have wickedness thrust upon us?
Mhm.
You know, do you get scared when you're working on projects like this? I know that's sort of a sillier question, but I'm curious.
When I watch it, I get more scared.
Yeah.
Not really. I really like, the horror genre, and I'm so happy to be getting a chance to work in it with monsters. So, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
get
Well, I'm
scared
happy
when I
for
have to
you.
describe the scene to the actor that they if we're making sometimes agent says, "Their question is what happens to them?" And I'm like, "Mm,
Well,
they don't have to be there at that part.
okay.
We'll do a body cast."
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can't even. I just can't.
That's when I get scared.
Yeah. Well, let's dive deeper into all those actors. I mean, Laurie Metcalf, Leslie Manville, who I just saw on Broadway. Oh my! Did you see Oedipus?
Yes,
Did you
of
get?
course.
Wasn't it great? Oh my gosh!
She could do
Next level.
anything. She
Yeah.
could do anything.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll hopefully that comes to the screen. It sounds like an awards nominee list in itself. So when you're kind of casting folks like this who can play and go toe to toe with stars of this level, and the same really goes for all most of your projects, right? What's the casting process like with the day players sort of coming in, the co-stars, because you could be a great actor, but sort of acting opposite a giant like that, you might not be ready. I don't know.
We definitely take into play who's in the scene with them and, what tone we wanna set and level we wanna set, and so often if it's even if it's just a day or 2, if the part really has some, turn to it, I do spend a lot of time on the phone with agents, with actors that I, like, deeply, deeply admire, and, um, try to pitch them on it, even though it's a small part and, not obviously totally worthy of their talents
Mm,
in terms of what they're capable of. I do try to encourage them to consider the project because of who they'll be working with. Because I think at the end of the day, really wonderful artists, like, we wanna work with people who are great, right? We
mhm.
wanna work with an ensemble of people that we just are like, "Holy moly." Maybe people we didn't know, but when they start acting, you're just like, "How are they so great?" "How do I
Yeah.
not know this actor? They're so wonderful." So,
Mhm.
we luckily in casting know actors that maybe we've seen on stage that maybe haven't had a big TV and film career, so they're not famous, but they are really respected and well known by directors and writers and, casting directors. Maybe not even other actors, right? And then unless they've had the opportunity to work with them already. So we're looking
Mhm.
for those kinds of actors that we think will be, um, they are at the level, even though they might not be as famous. They're ready to show up and play. They are
Mm.
fully formed, brilliant artists in their own right, and
Yeah.
we want to populate the project with all the actors. Like, I don't think we think
Yeah.
about co-stars and day players the same way that actors do. I think actors
Mm.
think it's like a certain level of actor, but we don't look at that. We look at the scene and go, "What does the scene require?" And
Mhm.
I will definitely try to convince someone great to come and play for a day rather than, um, put someone in who is not ready for or what
Yeah.
and it's not just like, "Oh, I don't want the person to freak out or
Mhm.
break under pressure." It truly is, this is the requirement of
Yeah.
scene and who is the best actor for that role.
Yeah. No, I
Not
get
that
that.
different than doing the bigger parts.
True. I mean, they're all serving the story. Do you feel like the co-stars are tricky? Because a lot of us actors think those are the hardest to audition for, where you have maybe 1 or 2 lines, and it's sort of like,
I think there's a lot of psychology that goes into co-star auditioning, first of which is,
"Let's go
as
there."
I'd say
Okay.
in Los Angeles, it's not what your dream is to be doing, right? And maybe your roommate had an audition for one of the big parts. So you've got some kind of psychology surrounding how do I
Mm.
get from this kind of part to a bigger part? So you've got already that kind of psychology, I think, going on. And so then when you're looking at it, I do think there's sometimes a block of negativity about this part doesn't have anything to do.
Mm.
And when you take for granted because of the amount of lines that it's not difficult or there isn't anything to do, you're blocking your creativity. And what happens is someone else comes in and sees like, "Oh, this is really fun." I always use this as an example because it's a recent show I did. I worked on a show called And Just Like That, and there's a scene where Carrie and Aiden are finally meeting, and they're supposed to meet on Valentine's Day. There's all this pressure, like, they have not
Hmm.
seen each other in so long. They're both potentially single. The audience is waiting for this, and Carrie accidentally goes to the restaurant next door, which is empty. It's like a Greek restaurant that's empty, and there's this one waiter there. And
Hmm.
first of all, if you're in New York City and you go to a restaurant on Valentine's Day and it's empty, that's not good.
Yeah, turn around, turn around.
Get out of there, get out of there. And that actor was so funny. Like, you knew exactly how Carrie his behavior and his acting, and Michael Patrick King actually wrote, me on this side, was like, "Our actor today is so fantastic."
Oh
Like,
my
he
gosh.
was so good, and there's no lines. He just
Mm,
understood the situation. He understood what would might be, and I think that that's what we need a little bit more, is coming to the audition with, creativity and going, "Who what
mhm.
is" the same questions you ask when it's a big part. What's my first impression of who this character is? What would be funny or what would be kind of scary or off-putting?
Yeah,
What's the tone?
yeah.
And that can do that. So I really do encourage actors, but I think it's hard. There's a psychology there, isn't it? Of like,
There is. That's a
there's
great word for
nothing
it.
to do. And I'm like, well, that's not true, actually.
Well, I think part of it too is the stay in your lane of it all, right? Because you don't necessarily want to get there and feel like you're so in the circumstances that you're not distracting, but I guess it depends on the set too. It's like reading the room. So you could show up and the director could be like, "Ooh, try this. Actually, add a little of this there." You just don't know. But it's that
No, but I think it's
line.
gotta be grounded in truth, and it's gotta be
Yeah.
what the script intends, right? I think that sometimes people think big choices means, like, going outside when there isn't,
Mm,
a lot of material, but sometimes just being very specific
yeah.
and detailed and present.
Yeah, specificity. I'm surprised we haven't used that word yet.
Right.
That's a great one. And speaking of the specific choice to cast somebody like Addison Rae was such a delightful surprise. I mean, that's something y'all do so well,
Well,
especially on these.
that's Ryan Murphy. I have to say Ryan has
Okay.
such a great sense of encyclopedic knowledge of pop culture and
Mm,
also genre and various genres. And I think that he is really, it's fun sometimes when he'll say, this is, that section with the babysitter is kind of our most sort of traditional horror, right? Like, how many horrors do you have where there's like a young teenager and
mhm.
then she's going to get killed by a serial killer? Like, it can be a trope unto itself, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to have someone who is unexpected like Addison, who, is so in the pop culture and pop music and, that is sort of like the ultimate teenager,
Mhm.
right? Like, that is
Yeah.
kind of like the teenage dream, it's a Katy Perry song, the teenage dream.
Yeah,
And to
so good.
have her in a period piece, in that role, I just think it's just
Mm,
so clever, but that was definitely
yeah.
Ryan going, "Who would be like," him describing what could be good, and then us coming up with the list
Yeah.
of actors that might, really tell that story in that way and make it kind of pop out to you.
Yeah. That contrast, and that's something y'all do so well, the contrast and the unexpectedness. Is that something you talk a lot about with Ryan? I mean, even All's Fair, Glenn Close and Kim Kardashian. It's like it's so fun to
It's
see.
making a balance, and it's kind of keeping you, sort of delighted. I find it
Yes.
delightful where you're like, "Oh, I did not expect to see that," or, "How fun to see this person." I thought that was Jessica Simpson, in her role. Like, that was someone who has been so picked over about her looks her entire life, right? Like, I mean,
Mm.
since she was a teenager, and then to have her play a character that, you know, husband's encouraged her to get, like, a botched surgery, and the fact that she was so game for doing, because I think she was really, in on that story,
Yeah.
like, she understood how it was fun to her for her to be a part of because of, the endless discussion of, you know, women being beautiful and staying beautiful and all of those kinds of things. It just really is fun to kinda think about.
Yeah. It is so delightful. And, mentioning Addison and sort of the fun that these shows have as they live on really exists on social media. And I'm just curious about your, I don't know, social media philosophy. How much do you search for talent on these platforms? Is that a part of your sort of office
I
routine?
mean, If I have something really specific, right? Like you're looking for someone, usually someone who is potentially unrepresented, whether it's an actor with a certain disability or a certain skill set, right? I've worked on many musicals where it's like the
Hmm.
choreographer would love to find a longboard dancer.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a longboard dancer agency you can call and they
There's not?
schedule everybody
Yeah.
between 18 and 22. No, you're going online and you're looking at those communities and reaching out to them. Um, so I would say that's the biggest use I would say of social media that I use for seeking talent. That being
Hmm.
said, I am fed talent by the algorithm and probably what kind of videos I watch. So I'm often, if I'm looking at TikTok, getting dance videos and singing videos and
Yeah.
comedy videos, and these are all just performance.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between that, seeing someone performing on my phone in my living room and, like, having to go to the Joyce in New York and see a
Mm.
showcase of young choreographers? I would like to do both,
Yeah.
right? Because some
This
people don't have
yeah.
access to get to the Joyce. The
Mm.
fun thing about social media is it has, um, I mean, we don't, like, think of it as democratic, but, like, it's almost everybody has access to a phone,
Mm.
and so they can put their performances up where not everyone has access to go to, like, New York or LA
Mhm.
um, or has the time to be knocking down those doors trying to get into comedy clubs, that are the big ones, that
Yeah.
about. They're in littler comedy clubs, but they can have a friend video it and put it on TikTok, and I could still get it,
Yeah.
even
No,
though
that makes
I have
sense.
no idea where they are.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing now. We can open up the searches, but mentioning the musical of it all, I'm always curious about when you get an audition and it's for something where the character in the story is performing, let's say, on a stage, and in the audition you have to sing a cut from the song. I guess it's again back to the story, but do you like to see the actor sort of working the room on a little camera, or is it like you'd rather see them processing the intention of the song? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Really
Because
depends on the context of the scene. If it is supposed to be like they're performing, like Pitch Perfect or something like that, I'm just using that as an example, and
yeah.
it's not a book musical style, like, musical where it's sort of like, I'm not really singing. This is just sort of you know, I'm working through something internally, but the way it presents in this medium is I'm singing a song. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like I'm acting a scene in song
yes.
is different than I'm performing a number on a stage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess I want whatever is it's asking you to do.
Yeah. I think it gets hard when it's not clear. It's sort of like,
If you don't know, do one where it's internal and then do one where it's performing.
mm, the two takes. I
Mhm.
guess you don't mind like a contrasting take. I know every people
No,
feel
especially if it's not
differently on
clear,
this.
especially if the agent goes, they weren't sure if this was, like, in performance mode, like he's on
Okay.
stage in Vegas, or whether it's he's actually in a scene and this is a musical, so we've kind of performed it in more of a
Mm.
scene study, sort of, a musical scene, and then as a performance if he were on stage.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. But you operate in a lot of these repeat ecosystems, like I kind of mentioned earlier with Ryan Murphy, Dan Fogelman, ABC, Disney. What do you think in your brain makes a great creative partnership? What do you love in a creative partnership?
What do I think? I would say just really open communication, like open, that we can really talk and not be afraid to brainstorm together, because I think,
Mm.
like we always say brainstorming, there's no bad ideas, but I actually think bad ideas lead you to the good idea. Like learning
Yes.
why someone isn't right is as important of why this person might be right. Like what are
Mm.
the I feel like the communication and the conversation and for me, what I love is feeling like, I can get into their head, like, they're open enough with me, they're not trying to get me to guess what they want or testing me,
Mm.
it's more of an
Mhm.
actual conversation where it's like, "What about this?" And they can go, "Oh, I hate them," and I'm like, "Okay, great,
Mhm.
not them." But, like, what is it? So it's you can really just have really clear, funny communication. I feel like everybody you're talking about is really funny,
Mhm.
and I think we get excited, I don't think I work with a lot of people who are like, "This is my job. We're gonna punch out 23 episodes, and it's a formula, and don't overthink it, and it's gonna be like
Mm,
that." I never work everyone is super excited, super invested. Everyone wants to change the world one little bit at a time with this piece, and I think that that excitement is infectious.
another good word. That's what Charlie said, I think ultimately made him want to do the project, right? When he met with Ryan, was that he had never seen someone who was almost childlike. He said it was as if Ryan had just written his first screenplay,
Yeah,
which obviously he hadn't.
no.
And so I appreciate you putting that there. And I wonder if that applies to actors too, right? As they try to foster relationships with people over the years. And I mean, you work with a lot of the same talent over and over again. So it's sort of like that. Is it that openness? Is it just being a kind human
I
that
mean,
kind
that's
of,
really important.
yeah.
I think it's also just being a really like, you just get inspired when you think of someone like Leslie Manville playing a part.
Yeah.
She's just incredible, and she or Catherine Hunter, I had on one of the shows with Ryan, I love her, but that kind of a thing, like, you get excited,
Mm,
like, what would they do with this? Because you're such a fan, and you know they're gonna do something interesting and surprising, and,
mhm,
sometimes I think we all have that too, where you're fans of certain people, and you think, like, what deadline article cast announcements make me the most excited,
mhm.
right? I do think like
Yeah.
sometimes where I'm like,
Yeah.
"This is cool," but, like, would I get excited to hear it? Like, I wanna get
Yeah.
excited about what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Yeah, I think that applies to actors too. We had a wonderful actor, Jen Lyon, on here
Oh, I
recently, and
love
she
Jen
was
Lyon.
saying,
We went to
uh
college.
no, you didn't. You
Not
know
at the
Jen?
same time, same college, but
Oh,
I know her from college.
okay. Talk about a kind, just talented human. And she said she wasn't afraid to say it. She said, "You don't copy them, but if you're ever stuck in a scene about making a choice, think about an actor you admire and how would they play the scene? And that can just help you kind of get excited, like you're
Yeah.
saying." So yeah, I love that you say that. I've been so excited to talk to you, and I thought it'd be fun to play a surprise game that I'm calling Little Canfield Big Resume. And so, listeners, since Tiffany Little has big magic when it comes to casting, I thought it'd be fun to name one of her more recent iconic projects, and she will hopefully then share one lesson from that experience that we can take away from today. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. There are so many, everybody. If you go to this CVS like receipt of an IMDb page, you're going to just black out with excitement. It's all your favorite projects, but I'm going to just name a few. The first one, because I'm obsessed. Since I was a kid and I played baseball, everyone's running out on the field. They're like, I want to be Derek Jeter. I'm going to be Bernie Williams. And I was like, I'm going to be Mary Poppins. And my dad was like, oh my gosh. So I got to ask you about Mary Poppins Returns. What was the takeaway?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, anytime Rob Marshall and John DeLuca and Mark
Yeah.
Platt call because there's a new project, me and Bernie are just over the moon with excitement. I love them so much. So that's the first thing. So I'm trying to think. And the first step
Yeah.
was obviously casting Mary Poppins, which is funny because when we did our first meeting, it was really clear to us, really clear to us who it had to be. And obviously Emily Blunt. To me,
Hmm.
that to me seemed obvious.
Yeah.
And it's because, when you think of Julie Andrews, who's an absolute icon, and then in the role is iconic as well. It's not just like, you know, she's always great, and this is like her, this and Maria and Sound of Music are probably,
Oh, yeah.
the most famous performances in the history of film. And I wanted all those qualities that she brings to it, the humor,
Mm.
the honestly, the beauty, like how she looks in that, she's just so pretty. And also she's a excuse me, she's a
Let
great
it
singer.
fly.
She's a great singer.
Yeah.
And Emily is a great singer. And
Mm.
so she has such clarity of tone um and her humor is phenomenal, phenomenal. And she can be really wry, because the thing is sometimes Mary Poppins is quite, stern with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
she's judging you,
Very
and when
cheeky.
Emily does that, it's a delight, the same way it
Yeah.
is when Julie Andrews does that. So, I feel like though all those qualities added up to, like, plus we'd worked with her before, and she is
Mm.
a dream, right? So,
Yeah.
that was the first part, and then the rest of it was really, the biggest fun part. or the biggest part of casting that was fun was the kids, because
Mm.
the kids are such a huge part of the film, and that process, with kids, it's a volume game. You you wanna see all the kids. You
Yeah.
wanna see, an age range of the various kids, and we had quite a young kid in it, and so
Mhm.
that was fun, hard, but really, really fun to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then really
I
just sort of like
imagine.
your dream casting, like, for me, Colin Firth is
Oh my gosh.
so much fun, and then,
Yeah. You got Meryl Streep,
Meryl
Lynn.
Streep, Lynn. Well, Lynn,
Yeah.
that was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be so fun to see Lynn do this," right?
Yeah.
Play a British character, like,
Oh my gosh.
we know Lynn personally so well, and Lynn's projects that, In the Heights and in, Hamilton, obviously, I feel like the world knows Lynn.
Mhm.
Who he really is. Like, if you see Lynn on a show, he's so authentic as a human being, and so it
Yeah.
was really fun to kind of play with that and push him into a
Mhm.
world where you wouldn't assume you'd see Lynn, and I think he just killed it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I've got to come across him a couple times, and he's exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess mentioning him, the next one we can pop over to would be Moana. I
Oh,
don't know what you can kinda share about that, but
I have to say Moana has been one of my favorite films to cast because
oh.
of the deep dive into Polynesian culture, which I have not
Mm.
had the opportunity to explore. And we started off with a wonderful, I think it was like a 3-hour Zoom where cultural experts hooked us up with a professor of anthropology at, the University of Samoa, and
Mm.
we got to ask every question, we got to learn the histories, things that I may not even have I certainly didn't realize watching Moana, which my kids are the right age where I've seen Moana
Oh,
probably
yeah.
75 times at least, um, and I love it, and so that was really, really, really fun, and then,
Mm.
the search for our cast, and we really did create a village. Often when movies are done, you do this number, you cast these dancers for this number, you cast this for this, and you do this, and people come in for a week or two, et cetera, and shoot their
Mm.
bit. This really had the villagers working and living together on, doing the film for multiple weeks at time, and there was a
Mhm.
blend of, like, dancers, and then the actors were all part of the village, and creating that world was really, really amazing, and collaborating with, um, obviously Tommy Kail is our director, and our choreography team, Tiana
Mm.
is amazing, amazing. Like, we just had so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
really
that
obsessed
sounds
with the
so fun.
Polynesian culture now. It's so beautiful, like, the history of it and to those dance calls and how people would support each other, right?
Mhm.
We're so used to ballet where it's like someone's doing it and the people are over on the side like, "Hmm,"
Oh, yeah.
this was the opposite. This was like kids were there, everyone was in
Mm.
the windows yelling out, in support and clapping, and it was so life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a great way to put it. I'm sure it was similar on Wicked, which I love seeing even in the, ensemble bits like you said, just people that are so renowned on stage just flipping by. You said earlier to kind of give them this platform is so incredible. I know Wicked has just been taking over everyone's feeds and now it's gone. It's almost like we got used to it being social media. It's weird not to see Wicked videos anymore. But what's one lesson you will take away as a casting professional from that mega experience?
I mean, I feel like that one you always hear you get out what you put in. But I feel like that project I'm gonna get emotional. That project, everyone leaned in. Everyone was very excited and aware of the legacy, um, of what we were trying to do, how big an undertaking it was, and I feel like we just all leaned in 100%. There's stories from the set of, the gaffers and crew members and PAs all leaning into the monitors, watching every take, crying, and I think if
Mm.
you've been on film and television sets, that's not always the case, right? Because we've all got, like, various bits we're responsible for, but it really felt like everybody leaned in with everything they had, and,
Mm.
it created a family, and it was so special, and to see the audience get what we were trying to do, and feel it. I mean, those videos from the first one of people like my dad before Wicked, my dad after Wicked,
Yeah,
those
yeah,
kinds of things. I mean, what's better than that?
yeah. It was a cultural movement. And I mean, it's the kind of thing where you created a new family, but you also brought this massive Wicked family from all of the tours, all corners of the world in as well. So I
Mhm.
can imagine that was an incredibly moving experience.
It was.
Okay, I got to ask you about my new favorite show. Everybody, if you're not watching Paradise, I don't know what you're doing. You're not living in paradise. What I guess what are you taking away from that? It is so good because I loved Lost growing up and it gives me
Mhm.
that similar kind of vibe, but it has the This Is Us depth to it, makes you cry. I'm sorry. I can go on about Paradise.
I mean, Dan Fogelman is very special, and what he does is so constantly surprising. I would not have expected a show like Paradise after This Is Us. You know, you just think people have like their thing they do, even though when you step back and think about it, you're like, no, they don't. Like, look at this person created this. You know,
Yeah.
um, but that's another one. Dan really, creates this family, and I feel like our cast. I got such a chance to cast some people that I've always dreamed of casting,
Mm,
like, Julianne Nicholson, bucket list,
so good.
Chris Marshall, who also went to my same college, and when I saw her graduate, I was like, "I am very interested in this one. What's she gonna do?" And
Mm,
get to work with her, and then, Thomas Doherty in season
so
2.
good and
When
so
I
surprising.
right when I
Yeah.
got to Los Angeles, who I didn't know, and he's gotten close for me before to some things that I
Uh,
really, loved him for, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. This one was the one. I am so glad it was this one where it fit.
yeah. So good. I mean, I can't wait to see where it goes. I think they say it's only 3 seasons. I don't know. I don't remember, but who knows? But I don't want it to ever end. Okay, we talked about a few of your projects. Speaking of not wanting to end, I know we got to end our time together. I would just love if you could share. We usually ask for a gotten or a given, which is a best piece of advice thing. But in just looking at how much you do, I feel like it would be conducive to ask you, how are you kind to yourself, Tiffany, with all these things that you balance in your brain and in your
I
life?
am kind to myself. I've learned this about myself. I'm not someone who was really into wellness or things like that when I was younger. I would have said then martinis, but now I have to say, I love going to, like, the water. I call it the waters, like, the hot and the cold plunge and the sauna and
Mm,
the steam room. That is my when I'm really starting to feel like the weight of the world, I
yeah.
just get a book, yeah, I know it's gonna get water on it, but and I go to the baths.
You know, they should make like the little kids books for adults that are of that material so you can read it in the bath.
I think you'd be carrying one in like this, but yeah, no, I just try to
I know.
you have your little towel there so that your hands are dry and you're, like, leaning
Yeah.
to the side.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love that you do that. I wish you many more baths and success. Seriously, I've just been so excited to talk to you. I admire you so much. And I'm grateful that we have you making stories because you're making
Thank you.
some of the best stories out there.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert.
Thanks.